few weeks ago, a new update dropped for Astroneer, the Verdant update. And in this update, a new item was released. But what about this new item could be so scary? Well, there are 3 key reasons as to why this item is so scary, and we will have covered all of them by the end of this video. When Astroneer was first released in 2016, there were 2 main parts of the game: unlocking items and making sure you had enough power to craft those items. And over the years, nothing has really changed. The player's goal is to leverage these 2 aspects of the game with equal and appropriate measure in order to progress to the next stage. And that's where the tapper comes in. You see, since the beginning, wind and solar have been staples to the power side of the game. They have clear advantages: no required fuel sources. The obvious drawback: they only work sometimes, and that's the way it's meant to be. When you're in the early game, you should have power sources that have clear advantages and clear disadvantages, and wind and solar were obvious choices to create and maintain this healthy balance. But you come and you wreck it all. How in the world do you have the goal? Because of you we will witness the fall. Anyways, what the tapper does is attach to a plant that was planted by the player. It then generates organic infinitely. Now, organic is literally the cheapest natural resource in the game, so this may sound rather dull, but organic has one key use that makes getting infinite of it a little too OP. You see, organic is used to power generators, which can put out a lot of energy, and the tapper is easy to get early game. So what I'm clearly trying to say is that the tapper ruins the entire solar and wind energy thing by allowing you to fully automate around-the-clock generator activity very early on. The next reason the tapper is overpowered is because it replaces the usefulness of yet another item in the game. 2 more items, as it turns out. And that's the theme of this video. The tapper takes a lot of very useful things and it makes them much less useful by being broken. The next 2 items that take a hit from the tapper's rampage are the 2 most powerful currencies in the entire game: soil and Astroneer. Now, the reason these 2 are so powerful is because in 2 very different ways that I won't cover in this video, they allow us to get scrap, and we can use that scrap to trade for any natural resource in the game using the trade platform. So basically, infinite soil or Astroneer equals infinite of any natural resource in the game we want. How does that relate to the tapper though? Well, the tapper actually allows us to get scrap too from the organic it produces. The obvious reason this is broken is because it gives us that organic for free forever. So now the obvious question is, how do we get scrap from organic? Well, there is only one craftable item in the game we can get from organic that we can also scrap, and that item is glow sticks. Glow sticks deserve death, but also, they cannot be crafted automatically. That's right, if you want to craft glow sticks, you must open your inventory and press this button over and over again. You will periodically also have to wait for your backpack energy to regain before you can craft more, so that is the downfall of this strategy. Yes, the scrap is free, but you cannot automate getting it. Don't get me wrong, this is still brutally overpowered and is almost guaranteed to get patched very soon, but it is much, much less overpowered than if you could craft glow sticks in the small printer like you can with some backpack items, because then you'd be able to scale this to where you're getting however much scrap per minute you want without having to lift a single finger ever again. Instead, you have to put a little bit of elbow grease in, so this was a close call. Even the RTG is less powerful now due to the tapper being broken. Now, why do I say it like that? Well, that's because, in addition to me being autistic, the RTG itself is also overpowered. Now, many in the past have disagreed with me for saying this. They say, world-class jerk, You're stating your opinion as fact. There's nothing objective about the statement that the RTG is overpowered, but they are wrong! The RTG is objectively overpowered, and I'm going to explain why before I explain why the Tapper overshadows even it. The RTG had a similar effect on the game as the Tapper when it first dropped. We only had generators, wind, solar, and batteries back then to make power with. The RTG was overpowered because it replaced batteries. Batteries are not worth the investment anymore, because by the time you get enough of them to really help out your base, you could have already had RTGs unlocked and crafted. As time went on though, this problem only got worse because higher tiered wind and solar power units came out, meaning we now had late game versions of wind and solar. But wait. Oh, yeah. By the time we're in the late game, we won't be using those anyways because the RTG is here, so it's overpowered. But now even the RTG lives in the shadow of the Tapper. The Tapper replaces the RTG by giving the medium generator a remarkable mate boost. The medium generator has always been sort of a sleeper power unit. People don't really think to use it because it's not useful in the late game, but it's too expensive to craft in the early game. But what people often don't consider is that you can get medium generators straight off the bat by finding them in caves. It's useful in the early game because it takes carbon as a fuel source, which is smelted organic. You can see where this is going probably, but it uses that as a fuel source. And now for the incredible part, it puts out 9 units of power per second. I'll give you a moment to meditate on all the information I just laid out. So yes, you can craft the Tapper, early game. You can craft auto arms, early game. You can craft the smelter, early game. Another auto arm, early game. You can find a medium generator, early game. Now you basically have an extra long RTG that puts out 2.25 times as much power as an actual RTG. But also, you can stack up more trees at the end here and put a Tapper on each tree, then put an equal amount of medium generators on the opposite end to basically multiply the amount of power you get out of this contraption without making it much larger. This is a nasty, nasty thing. It takes out the usefulness of wind and solar entirely, and it takes out the RTG, kind of. And I do say kind of, because the RTG is still the best choice overall if you want tons of power in the late game, probably, because you probably won't want to set up this extra long contraption over and over again. But this extra long contraption technically is the cheaper way to do it, and it still yields the exact same result in the end, which is self-sustained, fully automated power. Which is a scary thing, to say the least. What have we to fear as a result of this pattern? How might the Tapper represent something far darker about Astroneer itself? This item is the start of a new era, one where man fears machine, one where items like the Tapper reign supreme above all.